This is Menna Laura Meijer, and she is an acclaimed director of documentary films. And in her films, and for which she has received numerous awards, children and young people play an important role. For one of her projects was a trilogy on young people, on love and sex. And this series won acclaim for the humor, the openness, and for the special use of images and music. And this year, Menna will finish We Margiela, a documentary on the fashion house of Martin Margiela. And she is also writing a book on the house of Margiela. Welcome, Menna.
Thank you.
Menna, We Margiela is your first film in the fashion world, but fashion wasn't the first reason you wanted to make this film. Why did you want to make it?
I think for me, the first reason why I really was interested in first of all, it started, of course, with the story of Martin Margiela, who was like this anonymous, not being there person. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to make a film about people who disappeared and who started a whole new life, like around 50, and it would never, we wouldn't know who they are, completely new life. And so that's how he first of all popped up in my research. And of course, this film is totally impossible, not only of Margiela, but because people who disappear can never be interviewed. So that's a very bad idea for a film. Yeah. And so I used the research we did for the house for Martin Margiela, and we refocused in a certain way to the house of Margiela, which is, I think, at this time, of course, still a house that has a really big influence on the fashion world, but also what really interested me a lot was the way that they worked together, the way that they branded the house. And I think a lot of idiom that the house of Margiela used is still very relevant here. And so we're speaking about anonymity, privacy, but also reusage. I mean, a lot of terms that you hear here in the previous conversations, of course, were very relevant to the house of Margiela when they started.
Yeah, but when they started, they didn't start as like your average fashion house. They didn't have like business plans. They started in a whole other way, and they worked as a group.
Yeah.
How did they do that?
I must say that that's all. Yeah. They started very small. That's what I know. They started very small, and of course, Margiela and Jenny Meijer started together. For a long time, it was a small house, though they got a lot of acclaim really soon. But I think the way that the house evolved was like something you can't even imagine anymore for now, because
do you think it would be possible today?
Would it? We must say that the fashion world is not my specialty, so I really look at them. For me, like looking at the house of Margiela is really about looking how we all work as creative people. So the whole idea of coming from school and being someone immediately, knowing how to brand yourself, knowing your DNA, whatever, something that's really very complicated, and also very complicated in relationship to creativity, and especially if you want to be an autonomous, I don't know the
independent
maker. Whatever maker you are, could be an artist, could be a filmmaker, could be a designer. And I think for me as a filmmaker, but also as a maker in general, it was really interesting to look at this house that really, really worked on the long-term relationships. And also that found ways to create some sort of, I don't really like the word of island, but a very secluded place where they were free to do whatever they wanted. And whatever they wanted wasn't necessarily related to sales, it wasn't really related to money, it wasn't necessarily related to success or fame, though I think all these things were very important. And for me as a filmmaker, and I hope for other makers too, I think it's important to look at how that was done then. And I think at this time, I think it's very hard.
Yes, this independence comes at a price.
Yeah, for them or for us now?
Yeah,
for them.
For them, and now maybe even more.
Yeah, I think for now, independency is priceless. I mean, you could say the price is so high. I don't know if that would still be possible. Like, a lot of people, of course, are fascinated by this whole idea of being anonymous. But if you really place it on yourself, I mean, would you be willing to, pay the price for people not knowing who you are? Could you live up to that?
Yeah.
So it really comes with a price in that sense. That doesn't mean that, of course, they became highly acclaimed for what they did.
And how difficult was it to make this film? Because you couldn't interview Martin Margiela. Did you try?
No, we never tried. Because for us, I think that's also why the film is called We Margiela. I wanted to make a film about the group. I wanted to make a film that was about the people who formed the we of the house.
Yeah. And was it difficult to have the people talk, to interview them? How was the collaboration?
I was very hesitant in the beginning, but it really went, I think, very well. We ended up filming in like 6 or 8 months, and we filmed like 20 people who were all part at various stages of the existence of. So we're talking about the old house of Margiela. Maybe we should explain that.
Yes,
so the film starts in, when it's in
the beginning, at the end of,
and then it sort of ends around the selling of the house and around the 20th exhibition, which was the moment that Margiela left himself. And Jenny Meijers already had left then.
She's really a big fan, huh?
Yeah, they are. I think Lucia was like his right hand of the design team of Margiela in Italy, and so the lady with the gray hair is Miss Diane. And they are extremely passionate. I must say that Italians are extremely passionate about a lot of things. So it's like a different kind of attitude, I think, also. But it's like, I've never met people who are so passionate in that sense. Also, about clothes, fabric, the whole designing process, the way of working together, and. So that was really amazing. Yeah.
And when you talked with all these people who worked at certain stages at the house of Margiela, how did they look back on it? And did they have the same feeling, or did they tell the same stories about, did they have the same vision, that's what I mean, on the house?
Well, I think that when you look back and you're 25 years older,
yes,
of course things have changed, and I think you also look back in a different way. And the whole selling of the company has meant a lot of things for different people in all different ways. But I think that's a very strong emotion. And also I think that for a lot of people who work there, I had the feeling that for them, they never envisioned them becoming very famous or being very important or very relevant. I think in a certain way, being there and working there together was very important. And not as much looking, but how will this work? How will it sell? I can remember that we had an interview with Harley Hughes, who was the first menswear designer, and he said, "I've never heard the word money." And I said, "But somebody must have said, we have no money, at least that." And they said, "No." He said that, like Axel Keller, who was the commercial director, never came in and said, "But this sells really well, you have to do more of this." And also that somebody like Margiela himself said, "You should do as you feel it." Yeah. Which is like really a very weird. He works now at McQueen. And
it's completely different.
After that, he went to Saint Laurent. So that was completely the opposite. But I think this is a very strong thing about the house of Margiela. And I think this whole way of looking at what you do and how you protect this creative process, but also how you can make this creative product interesting because it's not really giving you all the answers, but it is something that, of course, that Jenny Meijers had a very strong vision about. She was
very conceptual.
Yeah, and for me it feels as if Margiela, of course, is a very unique designer, but the combination with Meijers, who sort of gave it a very strong conceptual twist, and they never used the word conceptual, but I'm going to use it because of lack of a better word. So I think that was a very strong feature. But it was very much related to, in a certain way. So when I asked to Meijers, I said to Meijers, so what's your definition of creativity? As a filmmaker, as an artist, whatever you do in the world, you always want to know, what's your definition of creativity?
Okay, and she had one.
And Jenny said, for me, creativity is finding the solution that nobody else finds. But when you find, and that's why I really like the first film.
Yeah.
I really like the first film. Because when you find a solution that nobody has, it means that you're on your own. Because that's the whole thing. Now we feel as if, here's the best solution, I found it, nobody else has it, and people will recognize it. But it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense, the film can give a very strong insight of a story, of the construction of a house, and in a certain way, of course, also the demystification.
Yes.
I mean, when you look back 25 years later, we now, Patrick Skellen, the PR man, says, yes, everybody looks back with rose-tinted glasses, and things were not like that. I mean, the shows were a mess, it was always very crowded, there was never enough seatings, people were fighting. People didn't want to publish articles because they couldn't get an interview with the designer. Yes. So there have been a lot of, other sides to it. And I think the film also shows some, what's underneath it, which is very important because otherwise we all keep living with this sort of mythical thing of, oh, wow, let's do it like this, let's have no... because I always, as an outsider, I feel that...
You have a distance, yes.
Yeah, but as an outsider, I always feel so... so you have a show, and then it goes to a store, and then it comes to people. No, let's do it differently. We do it immediately to the people. No, let's do it differently. Let's make it very entertaining. Let's do it differently. But in a certain way, you're always following the paths of... money in a certain way. And for a maker, a writer, I'm sorry, what is the most exciting thing when you're a designer or a filmmaker, an artist, whatever, is having this feeling of doing something that's because you want to do this.
Yes.
So you have to move away from all these, all these voices, all these things telling you, you should do this, you should do that.
All the business plans.
All the business. I think so. But then again, I think Jenny Meijers had a very, very strong vision on that, and she has a really enormous amount of, I don't know the nice word, balls. So I think she really constructed something in that sense.
How do you see for young designers or young makers the relevance of the house today in this age?
Well, as I said, I think I make no difference in a certain way to people who design, people who make films, people who, whatever. And I think we are all looking for this place where you can feel free and have the feeling that you create because this is something you find important. And even that is the hardest thing there is. And therefore, it's sometimes very important to look at designers who have done that and to also really look at the courage and the courage they had to do it their way.
Yeah, the bold choices you have to make.
Yeah, and also how to be so provocative and also to do things that you knew would, irritate people, would provoke people. And maybe people say the audience in a certain way has changed, but Patrick Skellen says somewhere, he said at that time people like to be provoked. And I think that's a very relevant remark, because I have the feeling at this time people don't like to be provoked. They like to be entertained. They like to have a feeling, but not the feeling of provocation. Huh? They don't like the feeling of, what's this? I don't know. I don't, you know. And we all think of maybe with Vietnam, where things have changed in a certain way. Of course, they changed a lot, but.
And when will you finish the movie? Because we are very curious, and where will we see it?
I hope it will be finished. It must be bad luck to say so, knock on wood. I think I hope the end of the year, unpainted wood. I hope at the end of the year.
Okay,
and
the book?
And the book we're working on now. It's very close to the film. And
so it will be released together?
I wish we would have that good of planning. But
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think it will be very much like we'll see how it goes.
Okay. We are really looking forward to seeing the film.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Menna.
Thank you.